Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to be addressing a question that I'm getting from business leaders pretty much every day. Model context protocol. Why is it and why should they care? Right? So here's the funny thing. I have about 5 minutes here while I wait my wife so we can actually go out to a lunch. So I thought, why not jump on here, talk about model context protocol, and see if I can provide some value to someone who might have that question, right? To some sort of business leader might be wondering why this MCP and why should I even hear about it, right? So let's just kind of jump in before I get this knock on my door. First off, let me say this. The term shouldn't scare you. It's actually a really good thing. And it's really not that crazy to understand once you start breaking it down, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down crystal clear, especially for you business leaders who want to leverage AI and leverage AI responsibly. And by responsibly, I mean as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible. And you don't want to get like bogged down in like the tech jargon, right? So let's jump in. So exactly what is MCP, right? So what MCP is, it's an open protocol that standardizes how applications deliver context to large language models or LLMs, which is the brains behind the AI agents. Now that I promised you I won't get into too much technical jargon, and I just did, but I'm not going to break my promise, right? Because I am going to unpack that, right? But before I do, I'll repeat it again, right? So what is MCP? It's an open protocol that standardizes how applications deliver context to large language models. All right. So first off, let's just break down a few keywords, right? Number one, what's the protocol? Look, I'm going to prove to you that even though that this sounded like something very super techy, it really uses words that you use every day and we actually understand. And the first one is, what's a protocol, right? We know what a protocol is because we all speak some sort of language, right? So we know, for example, that we speak English and there's an English protocol because a protocol is just a set of rules, like grammar of a language, right? So, for example, English, right? English works because we all follow the same rules for speaking and writing. So, MCP does the same thing here for AI. It is a set of rules that ensures that applications, right? If you write an app that uses an LLM, like an AI, it right is a set of rules that ensures that applications can provide context to LLMs in a consistent, standardized way. And you can start thinking about why that's important, right? We have a whole Tower of Babel situation on our hands if we cannot understand what we're saying to each other, right? If I have different dialects, right, in English, that even causes a commotion, right? Where we might both be talking English, but you're talking it with a deep Southern sort of like dialect or Cajun dialect versus someone up from New York, right? Or even someone from the islands like me. If we're speaking each of our dialect, right, or version of English, that even becomes confusing. And let's not talk about obviously us speaking completely different language. Whenever we select a means of communication, it only works when we agree on the rules, right, under which that language or that communication works. So that's what a protocol is. It is a set of rules, like the grammar of a language, that says this is how you communicate something, and you standardize it so that everyone uses and understands that protocol. So hopefully that's already starting to kind of light a little bit of a little light bulb is going on like, oh, I'm kind of getting this. The second word I want to look at here is open. It's a very simple word, right? It's a very, very, very simple word, but it matters so much because it sits before the word protocol. So open protocol. I'll remind you of this, right? MCP is an open protocol. So what does open mean here in this context, right? Well, an open protocol means that it isn't controlled by just one person or by one company who can decide to do whatever that they want, right? Open protocol means that it's a standard shared and agreed by many. And as a business leader, that is super important because you do not want to invest in something that can be changed on a whim by just one group of people or one company. If you're going to invest right in MCP because, hey, it makes things standardized, you don't want that standardization changing just because a company thinks it benefits their bottom line, a company that is not yours, right? So knowing that MCP standards, the protocol is open, makes a lot of sense. So open protocol. The next thing we want to talk about is the word context here. And that one is super powerful. This one is super powerful here, right? Because it really drives everything. I am to explain this, I'm going to use the synonym of context because it's a lot more powerful. Environment. Look, if I'm talking to you and I'm giving you a story, right, and you don't really understand, you might say, or if it's ambiguous, you might say, hey, can you give me some context of this, please? What you're really asking for is the environment in which that story took place or the event took place that I'm telling you the story on. And if I tell you that, and if I give you that environment, you start painting a better picture, right, of that particular story. So context is really about environment. So let's just look at this a little bit. So context is the environment that an AI agent needs to do its job. So imagine an employee that's at work. The environment includes tools like a computer, knowledge from past projects, and let's say instructions for a task at hand. For an AI agent powered by a large language model, right, the brain, right, context includes tools to take action, like sending emails, right, and memory to recall past interactions and even even the inputs that you gave it, right, like a customer query. So what MCP does, it standardizes how applications deliver this context, creating a seamless way to connect the tools, memory, and data in the LLM. Think about this, right? You have all these different tools and things that you're connecting to your agent. And if each one of them has a different way of communicating and talking to them, that means that the developer who's doing the job has to figure out all those different ways and code all these different ways to connect. MCP says, nah, I'm going to give you one standardized way. And I don't care what you're connecting to, right? You're going to use that standardized way. And that should be your big light bulb moment, right? Because why is this a big deal? Well, in the past, as I said, every tool has its own way of communicating through APIs. So you maybe heard of APIs, right? Application interfaces, which was like speaking, which was like having every tool speaking a different kind of language. And that's a little bit of overkill, but for the purpose of this video, speaking a little different language, that made building AI systems kind of messy, right? Time consuming and obviously expensive. So if you're a leader, all these things kind of go like, hey, yes, this is important to me, right? I don't want messy because if it's messy, it means it's going to cost a lot to maintain. I don't want time consuming because I want you to build this AI agents for me so I can get the value yesterday, right? Because we always want things yesterday as leaders. And expensive, right? We definitely don't want expensive, right? So MCP reduces all that. Less messiness, right? Faster to market, faster to deliver value, right? And less expensive, right? So MCP changes the game by providing a single standardized language, right? For connecting tools and memory to LLMs. So think about this. LLM is your brain, and that brain is useless, right? Unless you can do stuff with it. So you have tools that do stuff, right? So let's say an LLM looks at a document and goes like, oh, I need to send out an email to ask for more information. If the LLM is just the brain and it thinks that, but it cannot send out the email, then what's the point? So you want to connect the LLM to a tool, and there might be so many different tools. And you have to code every tool differently. But with MCP, you go like, nah, standardize all the tools, standardized language, right? It's easier for me to know to connect you, right? That's what's happening, right? So again, MCP's changed the game by providing a single standardized language for connecting tools and memory to LLMs, right? So it's think of it as like a universal translator that simplifies how applications talk, right? To AI agents. So let me just kind of show you a quick example, right? Let's just think about a quick example. Imagine you're a business that uses an AI agent to handle customer support, right? Because that's one that's being used all the time. What would you need? You need access to your CRM tool, like your HubSpot, your Zoho, right? Stuff like that. You might want to remember. You might want it to remember past chats, right? Like the past time it chatted with the customer, because that past history makes sense, right? As a matter of fact, that's one of the big things that makes a support agent really great is to remember a past conversation with that customer, right? So again, you have access to your CRM tool you need, you have access to the past chats that might be in a database sitting somewhere, and it has the ability to process new inquiries, right? So Whenever it determines something needs to be done, it can go ahead and it can do it, right? Without MCP, your developers would spend weeks coding custom connections for each of those tools, right? Especially if you have a situation where in some companies, there's multiple CRMs, right? There's multiple ways to send out emails, right? There's multiple things you can do in terms of new inquiries because there's a lot of things that customer support can do. In the past, you needed to kind of create, as I said, custom connections and stuff like that for each tool. But with now MCP, these connections follow a standard format. So your team can plug into them quickly. That will save time and money, right? So again, why would you as a business leader care about MCP? It's because it empowers your team to build powerful AI agents faster, cheaper, and more effectively, right? MCPs are going to simplify development for you, reduce costs, and give you access. And this is so important, right? Because a lot of time people focus on just the cost and the speed of development as a value of MCP. Here's the other one. It will give you access to a wider range of tools. In other words, it gives you access to creating a richer environment for your AI agent. And think of it from a human standpoint. When we have an employee and we want to get more out of the employee, what do we say? Provide them more training or provide them better tools. That's what MCP can allow us to do, to provide the AI agent better tools. And if we provide the agent better tools, we're saying that we're giving the agent a better context or environment, and it becomes smarter and it becomes more capable, right? So that's MCP in a nutshell, right? It's a set of rules that makes AI development smarter, faster, more affordable, and creating better contexts or more rich environments. So what I want to say is that, if you have any questions, you can reach out, right? So again, thanks for watching. And again, if you found this helpful, give me a like, subscribe for more tech insights, and let me know in the comments how you're using AI in your business. Thank you and bye.